he put the limit of what the United States would be ready to tolerate on the nuclear front. Whereas the previous American administration was adamant against any development of nuclear technology in Iran, including enrichment, including for civilian purposes. Obama was very careful to put the limit at actually developing nuclear weapons. What does this indicate? It indicates that Obama would be ready to some kind of continued nuclear development in the civilian front, and even allowing the Iranians to do what I think they actually wanted to do all the time. I think that, of course, this cannot be proved, but it is the most likely interpretation of all that has been going on so far, that what the Iranian regime was actually looking for is developing nuclear weapons capability, which is different from developing nuclear weapons. That is to say, and many countries actually around the world have this policy. It's not unique to Iran. For reasons that, I mean, are very easy to understand. I think they would like to develop, first of all, nuclear technology for peaceful use. This is both economically and otherwise in their interest, but also to be in a position to construct weapons, nuclear weapons at short notice, but without actually doing it at the moment, but only in case it becomes necessary. Now, there was a recent, I think a day or so ago, or two, there was an interview with El-Baradi. Yeah. With El-Baradi, the guy responsible for supervision, on behalf of the World Nuclear Agency, who is actually about to finish his mandate. He's about to retire, and he actually indicated as much. He said, there is room for agreement between the United States and Iran on this basis. Iran is a big, they've got their own regional ambitions, which are not, contrary to the wishes of the world community. World community is the United States and its camp followers, of course. So there is room for agreement. So this is, this is the kind of policy that is emerging on behalf of the American establishment. The Israeli government is totally horrified by this because, as I said, this would actually reduce the importance of Israel, not eliminate it altogether. I mean, forget about it. Again, listen to what Obama said. The bond between Israel and the United States is unbreakable. And that's what he said. He started the part of his speech concerned with the Israeli-Palestinian conflict with these words. And I'm sure that he means what he says, and if you decode it, it means that Israel is still going to be our #1 ally, but it may not be the only one. I mean, we can be a little bit more flexible. And this, of course, is behind what this guy Dagan says. A Mossavi victory would be difficult because, you see, Ahmadinejad is God's gift to the Israeli establishment. I mean, he makes it very easy for Israel to sell its own line, and they've actually benefited very much from his pronouncements. Therefore, to say, as Petras, for example, or other people on the left say, that those behind the Mossavi campaign are Israel, as well as the United States. Well, the United States maybe, but Israel, I mean, this is actually sort of completely off the wall. Israel is actually very much opposed and would like to terminate an Iranian nuclear program, even if it only means civilian use, and certainly if it means nuclear capability. I mean, they're not really afraid of being annihilated by an Iranian bomb. This is you know, never land. I mean, this is kind of fantasy that you can hear, you know, maybe from Madgamna, but I mean, it has no basis in any reality. But a nuclear-capable Iran would actually be, again, you know, a competitor for American favors. It would be promoted in importance relative to Israel. And in this connection, I would like to end by telling you about another interview which you may have missed and which reflects on it. It's not about Iran, but about Iraq. But I think there are definite lessons. On the 12th of June, there was an amazing interview on Al Jazeera. In English, English Al Jazeera. If you email me, I can give you still the URL. You can still find the video of the interview. A 25-minute interview with a guy called Imad Khadouri, who was, I think, one of the main scientists in charge of the Iraqi nuclear program from the beginning. He's a scientist, engineer, actually studied in Britain and the United States. Very important. I mean, it was full of amazing revelations. For example, when France was helping Iraq with their program, this guy, together with other scientists, were in Paris, and he met a woman that tried to recruit him for another country, and only recently he realized that this was Tzipi Livni. he saw pictures of the, you know, she was until recently the Israeli foreign minister, and now she's the head of the main opposition party. But at the time, she actually worked for the Mossad in Paris, so everything fits. And she said she looks now a bit older, but unmistakably it was her who tried to. Anyway, this is just a tidbit. But one thing of great interest, he said. You all know about the Israeli bombing of the Iraqi nuclear installation, Tammuz 1. It was the otherwise known as Osirak, which was actually built with French help in 1981. Now, what this guy says was that until this point, the Iraqi regime had not decided to develop nuclear weapons. They were still considering it, you know, how far to go. Once this installation was bombed, then Saddam actually decided to develop nuclear weapons. And I think this has a very interesting lesson as far as Iran and other countries are concerned. So I recommend that you actually watch this interview. It's fascinating on many levels. Anyway, I think this is all I have to say at this stage. Thank you.
Thank you very much.